Father, there was a movie in the 90s called Air Bud. And the premise of the movie was that this golden retriever was allowed to play various sports because, quote, there's no rule a dog couldn't play basketball or football. And so, Father, I was surprised when looking over the Bucks 53-man roster that Air Bud wasn't on it because it sure seems like everybody else who's ever touched a football is on their initial 53-man roster.
Well, that's especially true since they haven't made the playoffs in, a long time. And one could say they've had their share of dogs.
Ah, uh, it's
Uh,
it's been rough, and whatever. We're Tampa Bay Sports of the Hendersons. We are a father-son podcast where we talk about sports in Tampa. I'm Ben Henderson. My father is Joe Henderson. He used to sit in the press box of Houlihan Stadium and watch the Bucks play football in creamsicle jerseys, and they weren't very good at it. Isn't that right, Father?
that's a fact.
You ever actually go to Houlihan's?
Yes, I did.
I have not. You'll have to tell me about.
Well, they had food and I ate it.
Great. So we are recording this on September 6th. It is 8:48, and we are taking a look, Father, at the Bucks' initial 53-man roster because I don't know if you're aware of this. They're going to play a real NFL game on Sunday.
Praise the Lord and pass the mustard. It's about time for some real football.
Now, Father, we know there was no preseason football this year. How did that affect you?
Well, I really missed out on those epic battles where the starting offensive team played, oh my gosh, 2 series, and maybe the starting defensive team played 1 to 3 series at regular season prices. So yeah, we'll just have to see how it goes. But
I mean, I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know how we're going to break down this roster without these preseason games. Like, so we're
well, in all fairness, it will be different because you have not really been up against somebody else in a different color jersey, and especially for the rookies, the game is exponentially faster, and it's going to take a little while for it to break out. But everybody's starting from the same spot, and you got to look at the Bucs right now. They have a really veteran football team. My gosh, they're they've got guys who've been there before. They've got a coach who knows what he's doing. I think you might say the quarterback's pretty good.
yeah, maybe, but again, without the preseason, how do we know? How do we
Well,
know?
we're going to find out real quick on Sunday at New Orleans.
All right, well, let's take a quick run through. We're going to look at each position group. If you are following along on our YouTube channel, we are looking at this through BucsNation.com. Shout out to BucsNation.com for compiling this list of the 53-man roster. Again, we are on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google. You could probably just take a walk with my father. He goes on one every morning. Father, can they do
Ha
that?
ha ha. Three
No.
miles.
Yeah,
What are
well,
you up to?
that'd be plenty of time to tell you about the 53-man roster of the Bucks. So let's
Sure
go through
thing.
it. Quarterbacks. Bucks are going to roll with Tom Brady, Blaine Gabbert, Ryan Griffin, and also announced today, Father, joining the practice squad, former first-round pick Josh Rosen. So, Father, we obviously know Tom Brady is the alpha male of this group. And any thoughts about the gentlemen who are going to hold Tom Brady's clipboard all season?
Well, interestingly enough, the last Buccaneer game I covered back when Raheem Morris was the coach,
Rah.
and and they went to Jackson. It's not the last game I paid attention to, but the last one I actually covered for the Tampa Tribune. They went to Jacksonville. Blaine Gabbert was the quarterback for the Jaguars, who were terrible, and they ran the Bucs off the field that day. And of course, we know what happened. A few weeks later, Raheem got fired, and led up to what we see now. But Blaine Gabbert was the quarterback that day for the Jaguars. And while I draw no parallels, he is a guy who's been in the league for a while. And in emergency, he could maybe come in and not be horrible. You know, in a perfect world, you'd like, a seasoned guy to step in, but it's a backup quarterback. My advice to the Bucs is keep number 12 up, standing upright, and things will work out okay.
Well, if Tom Brady gets hurt and Blaine Gabbert has to come in, um, the Bucks, Father, I don't know if you're aware of this. They have some running backs,
I've
just a
heard
few.
that. Yeah.
So the running backs the Bucks are going to roll with is Ronald Jones, LaShawn McCoy, Keyshawn Vaughn, who was their third round draft pick, and then this week picking up Leonard Fournette. So the odd man out of this, Dare Ogunbowale, he was kind of a special teams ace for them. He was a special teams captain. Kind of feel bad for him because I don't think he was a bad player, but when you bring in this caliber of running backs, surely he had to see the writing on his wall.
Yeah, and what they have now is really in a perfect world, and the NFL is not a perfect world, but as we look at it now, it is a nightmare matchup for defensive coordinators. What do you cover? Oh my gosh. Everywhere you look, there's somebody who can spread the field, make a big play. Um, it's it's really going to be fun to watch. Um, and I, your guess is as good as mine. What emerges as the number one option for these guys? Because Brady has just got to be looking at this, going, "Why didn't I have this last year in New England? We would have won another Super Bowl."
Right. Well, I think the biggest challenge for the Bucks, especially with that running back group, is how are you going to get enough touches to keep everyone happy? I mean, realistically, you can't because okay, if say you go, hey, we're going to be like the Titans and just we're going to run the ball. Well, here's the problem. Now your wide receivers are unhappy, and the gentleman making the group as of now, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, obviously, but then behind them you got Scotty Miller, Justin Watson, Tyler Johnson switching
Oh
from
yeah,
hockey to football. Just
sure.
kidding. He's
Yeah,
also a draft
yeah.
pick for the Bucks out of Minnesota. John Hurst and Jaden Mickens. Father, Scotty Miller is an interesting guy. He kind of fits that slot receiver role, Edelman-like role that Brady loves. In the flashes I saw of him last year, I mean, he seemed fine, but there seems to be some hype around Scotty Miller. You a big Scotty Miller fan,
I won't be able to answer that for like the first 3 or 4 games,
right?
but we don't know what they're going to do, and hopefully Bruce Arians does, because that's why he gets paid. But if you are a defensive coordinator and you're ready to face the Bucs, all right, you start off with, who do we take away? So answer me, oh son of mine.
Mm-hmm.
You're New Orleans D coordinator. What do you start by taking away from this offense?
Well, if I'm looking at their tight ends of Gronkowski, Howard, Brait, and Anthony Eclair, Maybe I'll start with Eclair. Take him out.
Okay, yeah,
That's a
that'll
good start.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you're down 21-0 in the first quarter. Then what do you do?
Oh, Scotty Miller. Yeah,
All right. So it's
that was.
35-0 at the half. What do you do?
I hit the pause button and I disconnect from the game.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, Injuries, of course, we acknowledge that everything changes. If Brady gets hurt, whatever. But when you look at that team with the assortment of weapons they have, the only hope is that they are not the 2020 version of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that'd be awkward. Fine, let me ask you this: we had Ira Kaufman on this podcast about a month ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he was previewing the Bucs coming into training camp. He made the prediction that OJ Howard might not make this team. Are you surprised at all that OJ Howard is still on the 53 man?
Well, not really, although that was certainly reasonable by my colleague, former colleague, to express that thought. Um, Cameron Brate is under the radar. I think he could be the big uh, beneficiary of the new quarterback and system. Um, but I will say this, if OJ doesn't raise his game, the new quarterback in town will let him know it in no uncertain terms. And I do believe the head coach and the general manager will listen to the new quarterback in town, and there will be consequences.
Well, and I think this tight end position, above all else, could be the X factor for the Bucs because we know Brady loves him some tight ends, and
Mm-hmm.
with Gronk, Howard, and Brate, one of those three surely has to emerge to be a guy Brady's going to like. And if that happens, eh, again,
Yeah,
who are you going to
but
guard?
but let's be honest here. We look at Gronk, and we love Gronk. You look at him; he's a great personality, had a great career, but he's been out for over a year. He gets hurt a lot, and he's 31.
Sure. Well, that's what I'm saying.
So
It's not, but your chips aren't like all in on Gronk.
no,
If Gronk goes out and gets hurt, I mean, you still have two other potential options to really emerge as that tight end that Brady wants.
all right. So son, let me ask you this:
Go for
who
it.
emerges as the top guy in the backfield?
Um, Probably Ronald Jones because Fournette gets hurt. I think Jones, when he's on, I think he runs as violently as the other guys that the Bucs have brought in. And he does have some pass catching ability, although on paper you would think LaShawn McCoy is going to kind of fill that James White role that Brady had in New England. But Fournette's kind of just never fool. I mean, it's not like he was bad in Jacksonville, but
Nope. He
he
did get hurt.
he just gets hurt too easily. So I would, if I had to put money down, I'd probably say Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I won't argue with that. But good grief, do they have some options?
Well, the key to the entire offensive cog is going to be the offensive line because I think is any scorned Bucks fan is sitting here going, yeah, this is all great, but all it's going to take is one missed block, rolls up on Brady's legs. Oh, there's Brady rolling on the ground.
Yeah,
No.
sure.
So our offensive line, we have Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen, Alex Kappa, Tristan Wirfs, their first round draft pick. Then you got Joe Haig, Aaron Stiney, John Malcolm, and Josh Wells. So the core of this offensive line, Smith, Marpet, Jensen, Kappa, Wirfs, is 4/5 of what we had last year. Tristan Wirfs being the new guy in town. Father, how much faith on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, do you have in the offensive line as a whole to hold up for Brady?
Maybe a 5. Yeah, that's it. This, I mean, that's really the X factor. We don't know. Um, if, if Brady gets knocked down as much as Jameis did, it will not end well. Am I wrong?
It will not end well.
Okay. Um, and but does the fact that Brady is back there mean that the ball gets out of his hand quicker than it did with Jameis?
You would hope so.
Yeah. So I'll give it a 5.
Sure, and I
And
think having a veteran like Brady will help a guy like Tristan Wirth kind of adjust his position, knowing he doesn't have to hold the block as long. And if he just exists and is standing there and every now and again touches a guy, he's already doing better than DeMar Dotson. So, you know,
well, DeMar did what he did for a long time, but now he's gone. So let's, you know, be nice. But
okay, okay. Sorry, Mr. Dotson, if you're listening. I'm sure you're a
yeah,
nice guy.
yeah, sure.
All right, we move on to the defense because that's also a part of the team. So, for as much splash as we've had on the offense, Father, we do know defense is half the battle. And, defense wins championships and any other cliches you want to throw out there. But the core of this defense does come back. So, on defensive line, you got Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, William Goldston, Raheem Nunez Roches, Khalil Davis, and Patrick O'Connor making the roster. I thought last year Vita Vea was kind of one of the breakout players. Had dealt with some injuries early, but healthy, he was an absolute monster at D tackle last year.
Yeah, and certainly worthy of a high draft pick, which the Bucs spent on him. And you've got to believe that he's going to fill that role for as long as he's healthy anyway. Um, I think the Bucs overall defensively are kind of underrated. Um, they've invested a lot of capital in trying to upgrade the defense, and all they got to do is just be maybe a little bit better than they were a year ago. Would you not agree?
I would agree. I think they're going to get put, in theory, in better positions. I mean, because part of the problem is when you turn the ball over as much as the Bucs did, the defense has to quickly turn around and get back out there.
Sure,
And when they get back out there,
sure.
the other team's already at the 50. So I think just cutting down on turnovers is by proxy going to help out the defense. An inside linebacker, you got Levante David, Devin White, Jack Chichi, and Kevin Minter. White last year was also a surprise for me. As you know, Father, I was not a fan of the
No,
White draft
no,
pick, but I do have
you
to
were not.
give him credit. He had a very solid rookie season once healthy. We obviously know Levante David when he is on. David starting to get a little older. Any concerns about a David slowdown?
No, not really. I'm not a complete fan in that you got to have young guys out there on the field. You got to have guys who are veterans, who've been through the wars, who know what they're doing, and I do believe the Bucs, particularly on defense, have their share of those guys. If you recall, New England over the years really hasn't run a basically rookie team out there. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
So how's that worked out for them?
Um, well, it did.
Wait, they had the greatest quarterback of all times. Oh, wait. Can we draw any parallels to the modern Bucks from that?
Hmm. Hmm. I'll
Yeah,
get back to
move
you on
on.
that. All right. Outside linebackers: Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, Anthony Nelson, Cam Gill, and Quentin Bell. So, Father, obviously we know the power of Shaq Barrett and JPP. Um, but Anthony Nelson, Cam Gill, and Quentin Bell are all unknown quantities. This might be the one position group where if Barrett or JPP go down, you start to have some concern because you can't have depth everywhere, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll worry about that if it happens. Right now, we're the first week in September. Opening day is less than a week away. You've got the best team assembled that you can have. And as we know, stuff changes. Guys get hurt. You adjust. Do you trust management to be able to adapt? And we're going to find that out over the next couple of weeks. But going into this season, you look at this Bucks team, and I've got to be honest with you. I go back to when John Gruden took over the Bucks after Tony Dungy, and Dungy was a great coach. But the Bucks felt they needed to make a change, and they brought in this aggressive, loudmouth guy who said, we're going to win it, and he did. So now we look at these Bucks, and we're going, okay. Uh, you've got the best quarterback ever. You've got all these offensive weapons. You've got a defense that can win you a championship. Guarantees nothing, of course, but doggone, if you don't look into this and look at a team that should be playing deep into January, if not up into February.
Sure. So I mentioned, offensively, the offensive line's kind of your one wild card. I'd say the other wild card for this team does become their secondary. So at corner, you have Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy Bunting, Ryan Smith, and Parnell Motley. And you pair that up with their safeties, Jordan Whitehead, Mike Edwards, Andrew Adams, and Antoine Winfield Jr. Father, this is a position group that over the last few years has been one prone to get torched. Um, Again, this is a group I thought was making steps last year and was making improvements. Sean Murphy Bunting, I thought, was starting to come along. He was one of their draft picks from last year. And so I guess the question is, Father, I asked you your faith in the offensive line. Again, scale of 1 to 10. What is your faith in the secondary to hold up?
Actually, I'm not that overly concerned. I think Todd Bowles has a pretty solid scheme, and they were much better by the end of last year, in my opinion, than they were at the start. And I look at this as a unit that will surprise you. I think they're going to be pretty good.
All right. The last group to look at here, Father, the specialist.
Oh
So,
dear. Oh, you're going to go there. Okay.
well, they're on the team too. So
Yeah.
so at kicker, Ryan Suckup, punter Bradley Pinion, and I know your favorite player on the team, Father, long snapper Zach Triner. Zach Triner, long
He's
snapper.
a stud. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, the big
Um,
other headline here is the Bucs bring in Ryan Suckup this week and tell Matt Gay to no longer kick for the Bucs, that his services are no longer needed after just one season. Father, it is another Bucs drafted kicker that doesn't stick around for very long. Um, Father, do you think it was necessary to bring in the veteran Suckup to take over Matt Gay's job?
well, what I really think is it shows how urgent the Bucks feel about this season because yeah, I don't know that that's going to make that much difference. Maybe it will. Kick here, kick there, okay. But you spent a draft pick on Matt Gay, and he had some success, and it was just
He also cost you the New York game,
well, there
and
was that, and but you drafted him, and you hung with him all year, and all of a sudden, no, we're bringing in this guy that, well, maybe he was better than you in a kickoff or whatever. But what that tells me is that uh, it's all or nothing for the Bucks this year. That's how they are approaching it. And believe me, I get it. Bucks fans are tired, sick to death of losing to games because of kickers. So, okay, you know, um, maybe Matt Gay one day gets to Bill Belichick and wins another Super Bowl. But right now, uh, they thought this other guy was better. So, okay, go for it.
well,
Hope you're
sure,
right.
and the theory, there's a theory in economics called sunk cost that basically just says that if you think Suckup is better than Matt Gay, then you keep Ryan Suckup, even though you spent a draft pick on Gay, because your decision
Right,
making
right,
going
right.
forward shouldn't be hemorrhaged by what you did in the past. Now, we can, for a different episode, ask
Sure.
genuine questions about Jason Light's drafting ability. The fact that 1 year later you're already cutting your drafted kicker again. But, I think a willingness to pivot does show that this is a team that is going to do everything they can to win a Super Bowl this year. And
Well, and,
either
and
you're on board and you're good enough, or go play for someone else.
well, and really, at the end of the day, isn't that what you want? You want your management to say we're all in to win, or
That was the New England model. I mean,
yeah,
I remember New England. I forget who the guy was right now, but literally, like, cut a guy on the eve of the Super Bowl. Like, made a roster move like the night before the Super Bowl, and brought up some other guy because they thought that guy was going to be useful. Like, that's how ruthless that New England was. And if it brings you wins, I mean, at the end of the day, this is professional football. I mean, we're not
well,
here to have
yeah,
kumbayas.
well, and one of the things I've always said is that if Bill Belichick looked at Tom Brady and believed that he had declined by a tenth of a percent, and he could bring somebody else in who would be a tenth of a percent better, that he would do that. Well, is that what happened?
Well, we'll have to find out. So, yeah, that's the 53-man Bucks roster. If you liked our content, again, please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. We hope to have an episode up later this week previewing the Bucs versus the Saints in the Superdome in front of no fans. Oh, that's okay.
Well, I've been there. I once covered a USF basketball game at the Superdome against the University of New Orleans with an attendance of, are you ready?
I'm ready.
416.
So what you're saying is Bruce Arians should hit you up for advice of how to play in an empty Superdome.
I'm here for him if he needs me.
All right, Bruce, if you're listening, that's Joe Henderson, former Tampa Tribune sports writer, current FloridaPolitics.com writer. You go find him. He can give you tips.
They,
Maybe.
I'm easy to reach.
All right. Well, again, we hope you've enjoyed the content, and we will see you next time.